Glenn, good evening. DK in the background. What is up, Ravens flock? I am James Haskell. This is my co-host, Glenn Martin, if you don't know him, which I'm sure you do. And, of course, DK controlling the strings as the puppet master in the background. We'll be sure to get some words of wisdom from him later on. Welcome to another live episode. Man, I am still pumped about our show with Landry Burdine. That was awesome. Glenn, tell us about it, man. Let the fans know what they're in for.
Yeah, please. If you guys are all excited about Ardarius Washington, the undrafted rookie free agent out of TCU, check out our video with Landry. Because, we got a former walk-on safety at TCU, played under Gary Patterson, who worked his way up to team captain and led his team to a bowl victory, snapping a 41-year drought in doing so. So, couldn't find a more perfect guy, because the reason he was a walk-on, by the way, undersized. So we found an undersized former safety to talk about an undersized safety at TCU, and the guy was phenomenal. So check it out. We just posted it, but don't check it out until you're done watching this.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and enjoy the show tonight. We got a lot of awesome stuff we're going to be talking about, and then make sure to go check it out. A lot of folks rolling in here. Lisa, Lindsay, Jimmy. Shout out to Jimmy, like we did on Tuesday, for being a new Patreon. Make sure you guys go check out our Patreon account. DK is dropping knowledge on the weekly at this point, so make sure you get it. Living Legend, and a few other folks. But where I kind of want to start tonight, Glenn, is around. So I want to say this: the people have spoken. All right, we put out a poll. We put out a poll today. And forgive my grammatical errors in the first poll, in that I was occupied with some other things and trying to. If you can imagine, I had a computer in front of me, and then a computer on my lap. So a computer on my desk, computer on my lap, trying to do two things at once. But apparently, I'm a chimpanzee and I can't talk and type at the same time. So I wasn't able to do it correctly. Some grammatical errors there, but I put out the poll again later, and it was essentially this here. The question was, what would you guys like us to talk about most on our live show tonight? Bradley Bozeman moving to center and the left guard competition, Lamar Jackson's contract status, and his comments during his presser, or the wide receiver competition now that mandatory minicamp is up and we're looking ahead to training camp. Well, now, it was a pretty one-sided answer in that 67% of the people wanted us to talk about wide receivers.
Okay.
Not too surprised. So I want to talk about that, but a lot of commenters, so we listened to you guys, a lot of commenters also said, just talk about all three, which was the plan.
Yeah.
But so I want to save the wide receiver tease.
Can we start with the center?
Yeah, so I want to save that for the sweet spot of the show. We'll start with the center and go from there.
Okay.
So Glenn, give me your feelings. Where are you now that you've heard John speak about Bradley? We've heard Bradley talk about playing center a couple times. What's going through your head these days?
Yeah, so I listened again to Bradley's latest presser, and by the way, is he one of the most likable guys? Just looks like a big jolly fella. Just a guy that just looks so friendly. So. He's that's a starter. Talk about wanting to have good guys in the locker room. He's certainly one of those guys. But he talked about how he's been practicing his snaps throughout. This isn't, he's been always practicing his snaps for the what if situation. So I was happy to hear that, but definitely said that he definitely worked on it a lot more this offseason than in previous off seasons, but has been working it throughout. Also, interesting that it looks like it's going to be up to him for pointing out the mic, for declaring the fronts, from sliding the protection to pick up blitzes, as well as making decisions on the fly, as he put it. So sounds like a lot's going to be on his plate from a mental standpoint, which was kind of surprising because I knew we were unsure of who would take over the line calls. Would it be the veteran Zeitler? Would it be, who's going to be responsible? Sounds like Bozeman's going to be the guy. And he tooted his own horn a little, Jimbo. He said, I think I'm an intelligent guy, certainly on the football field. So he's confident, and I love hearing that, because if he's confident, he must be doing well at it, or he wouldn't be so darn confident. So excited about that. And also feels that center has always been his best position. Says he's played it throughout high school, obviously played it all throughout Alabama. And so I'm excited because he was already a pretty darn good left guard. Now you're telling me he's moving to center and he feels this is his best position. Well, if we haven't seen the best of Bradley Bozeman, that gets me excited.
Absolutely. And I agree with all your points there. Just want to shout out really quick before I add on to yours. Tony Thornton, you guys all know, is in the comments section tonight watching the show. Shout out to Tony.
Absolutely.
The best in the business. We appreciate it. Hopefully you actually mean that. You're not just quoting Lamar, but either way, we'll take it.
Tony's the best in the business in my mind.
That's right. There you go. Totally agree with you there. But the other thing that I thought was interesting that John, John usually hides his cards well. He's probably a decent poker player. Like he doesn't reveal himself, where I feel like Martindale is just what you see is what you get type guy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Morningwig, how did it go with Morningwig?
Look at
that'll never get old for me for sure. But the thing I wanted to say about John that I thought was interesting is he said he's been on Bradley a couple of times, because now, why am I calling him Bradley all of a sudden? He's always been anyway, Bradley Bozeman. But he said, he openly said with the snapping issues they had last year, I'm a little more concerned now. So I say, oh, you're a little off left, you're a little high, you're a little low. But it's funny, he didn't care about pulling any punches. He just said, with the snapping issues we had last year, Bradley's a little under the microscope. It made me chuckle, and it didn't seem like very characteristic of John, in that McCarry's still on the team.
Yeah.
And I know McCarry was a part of that. And the last thing he wants to do is down McCarry. That's not John's style.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I agree with you 100% in that it's exciting to hear this is his natural position.
Mm-hmm. It's
also exciting to hear that he's completely confident. And you know what I love about Alabama guys is that just like Jalen Hurts said, I know that rent is due every week or every day, I think is what he said. And so, I pay my rent, right? Nothing is guaranteed. I know rent's due and I'm going to make my rent, right? I feel like Brad already has that mentality where I know what I can do as a center. Mm-hmm. I know rent's due and I'm going to get it done. I love that about his mental preparedness. But what about the left guard spot? So we've addressed center. We both feel good about him at center. And I agree with you. When we touched on this last time, where are you in John, based on John's comments about left guard, where are you feeling, what are your feelings thus far about, as far as that goes?
Yeah, I think they're hoping that Ben Cleveland takes that job and runs with it and doesn't look back. I think that the good news is there's depth there and there's options there in case he plays his way out of the position. But right now, I think they're fully ready to give that position to Ben Cleveland and just let the big fella maul people. I mean, just the size, the overall size of the line is just imposing. I mean, it's absolutely imposing. And then when I listen to Bradley Bozeman talk about the right tackle edition of Alejandro and the size he's bringing, and none of those guys even come within 20 pounds of the weight that Ben Cleveland's going to be bringing to the team. So I think just the amount of strength that we're going to have on the inside when you put him next to Bozeman, who they're all big guys. I mean, McCarry's a big guy, but I find it hard to believe that Patrick McCarry's as strong as Bozeman and as strong as Ben Cleveland. I think I'd be surprised to hear that. So I think you're getting an instant upgrade at the strength, in the strength department. The question still remains is, can Ben Cleveland move his feet well enough to pull and do the necessary things that he's asked to do as a left guard in Baltimore? We had Brooks from Dogs Daily come on and talk about him, and he said he is limited in his footwork. I mean, that's just no two ways about it. Now, he does move pretty well for a guy his size at 6'6", 357. But, regardless, I just don't know if he'll be able to get to those second and third levels, or even if the Ravens will ask him to do much of that. I mean, I think they'll mold their scheme and their playbook around who they have, and whoever's best will play. But yeah, I think it's Ben Cleveland's position unless he plays his way out of it.
So it's interesting, of course, because John said if you're a student of the game, you're going to have your eyes on that left guard competition. So if other than Ben Cleveland, is it a 2-horse race Like, is it Ben Cleveland, Ben Powers? Do you see anyone else in there pushing them? Because we really haven't heard anything about Bredesen, right? Not a thing. And then is there anyone that I'm missing, like other than him? I don't really know.
I think Tyree Phillips might have, because they want to play the best 5. And if even though right now he's the obvious swing tackle, I mean, I don't know how much confidence they have in Andre Smith, but looks to be the obvious swing tackle. But if he's also the best left guard that's competing, then I'm sure he'll get the spot there. So I think but you're right. I think the 2 leaders right now in the clubhouse are Ben Cleveland and Ben Powers. And Ben Bredesen, man, it is a lot. It is a lot. Bredesen, while we've seen him in spots as the extra lineman, he has done nothing to make any waves, get anyone excited. So I can't put his name up in that, competition just yet. Now that things could change. He could play well in the preseason and training camp, and that could change. But right now, I think it's Powers, Cleveland, and possibly an outside shot at Tyree Phillips.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting for sure. And Powers, like we said before, he's got to be playing for his life. But what did you think about John's comments? I'll give you my thoughts first. I also thought it was interesting when he talked about, I could see in his face. So like when I watch John, it's not so much his comments, it's also his body language. John's a little tricky. He's a poli-sci major in college and knows how to play the politics.
Yeah.
And so I could see in his face, he had a little bit of, I'm going to use the word glee when he's talking about the right side of the line. He's talking about the combination of Zeitler and Alejandro Villanueva, and he was, he seemed gleeful about it, right? Like he was giddy. He talked about them being a formidable tandem. So at this point, I don't have any concerns about Alejandro switching to that side, to the right side. And I'm excited about the opportunity that he has as a player to be in a run-heavy offense. I think this can be a resurgence or maybe a lengthening even of his career if he wants to continue to play. But so I love to hear that. And John said they're all ball all day.
Oh yeah.
Loved it, right? Like he's in the weight room and in the locker room, in meetings and on the field, all of it. So my confidence 0 out of 10, I'm at a 10. I'm like Michael Scott. I'm at a 0 or a 10, right? Like I'm nowhere in the middle.
Okay.
But literally after John's comments, I'm at a 10. They're both pros. They know how to get the job done. They're both proven. Like what reason do I have to doubt them together? So how are you feeling about that right side?
Yeah, I mean, got to feel good about Zeitler, right? I mean, this guy's Pro Bowl talent coming over to a defense, offense that he's going to be familiar with. He's going to understand what's going to be asked of him, and also return to the AFC North, I think gives him a little bit extra juice. So yeah, extremely excited about him. Obvious upgrade there. Right tackle, I think I'm still, we haven't seen a lot of it. This is, I'm sure John is excited because he's seen more than anyone, but I still haven't seen enough of what he's going to bring. Now I'm excited at the possibility, but we had a pretty darn good right tackle, at least to start the year last year when Big O was over there. So, he's got some big shoes to fill there, but I don't know if there's another player they could have brought in that would have gotten me more excited, in the right side. So maybe if they would have drafted one of these young guys, I could see maybe, but the fact that Alejandro has proven to be a Pro Bowl left tackle in theory should mean that the transition to right tackle shouldn't be that difficult, especially when
doable, right?
Right, exactly. Because he's, typically if you can play left tackle in the league and you're a hard worker, then you should be fine switching to right tackle. And all indications are that you're not going to find really a more dedicated and harder worker in the NFL than Alejandro. So I'm excited at the possibility. Still have to see it actually happen for my own eyes for me to get too excited. But man, that size on that right side, the experience that both of those guys are going to be bringing, helping along all the younger guys on that roster, I'm starting to get more and more excited, and really just imagining even if Alejandro struggles in the early parts of the season getting his footing, I just feel like at his size, at the very least, he's going to buy you 2 seconds just to run around the long arms and the 6'9" frame he's bringing to the table. So. And then you talk about at his size, pretty athletic guy. I mean, a guy that I think can move really, really well.
And originally a wide receiver, then a tight end. I mean, think about that. He used to be a wide receiver.
Yeah, and this guy's caught touchdowns in the NFL. So this guy has done it. I mean, he can move. He's just a true athlete at that size. And I think he really takes a lot of pride in making sure this group gets together and is successful as a unit. So I mean, I'm excited, but again, I still have to see him on the field with my own two eyes, and I think we'll get a chance of that throughout the preseason. But I guess that also comes down to how many joint practices they can do, because I think the more they have joint practices, the less we're going to see key veterans on the field on preseason games. So we may have to wait until week 1 to get a true gauge of what he's going to bring. But yeah, definitely getting more and more excited as the days go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And DK brings up a great question here. Always keeping us on our toes, man. I tell you what, how does Lamar handle being under center with a new offensive line? This is interesting, certainly, because, at the end of the day, last year, Lamar lost an all-pro left tackle and a Hall of Fame right guard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much for the entire season. I think Ronnie played, 5 games?
Yeah.
And obviously Yonder retired. So as far as consistency up front, Lamar really hasn't had a ton of it. But now I think to answer the question, the way that I look at it is that now he has to make 2 adjustments. He's got new bodies up front, or the same guys in different positions, obviously new center, and there's another wrinkle to what he's doing as a quarterback. So I guess to answer this question, I think Lamar Jackson is really good at being present. And so I think he's going to just take it one step at a time. I think he's going to accept the challenge well, and he's going to adapt. Like Lamar Jackson is the master of adaptation.
There you go.
And yeah,
I was about to say DK on you because the man's vocabulary.
That's right.
Okay.
And so I feel comfortable with it. I mean, I think that Lamar Josh Harris has talked about how Lamar is an insightful and an intelligent football player. And so I think he'll do just fine. The biggest thing is going to be the trust of the guys in front of him. If he trusts them, everything else will come. So I think that he'll be all right there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit – I think the only concern I would have is, that with this being a big story about him being under center, any mistakes that are made are going to be amplified. So if there's a fumbled exchange between Bradley and Lamar in week 1, I mean, that's going to be the headline, especially if it's in a pivotal moment or a moment that costs them the game, costs some points, whatever. It's going to be a big, talking point. They're going to both be asked about it. Coach will be asked about it. So in that regard, I just hope it starts off clean. That way they can, get those kind of questions out of the way. Because I think if it happens in week 15, we're not going to be like, well, you got a new center, you're under center now.
Yeah.
As long as they get through the first part of the season with a clean record there, then I think they'll be fine. But I can imagine if we see some fumbling, in the exchange, or we see some issues snapping the ball from Bradley in week 1 or 2, the boo birds are going to be coming out, and the questions are going to be coming towards every player, every coach, and it's just going to be another thing that they're going to have to answer for. And then that starts, I think, to weigh on you a little bit. Then you start thinking when you're about to get under center, you might be thinking, man, how's this now? That's the only thing that would have me concerned.
Yeah, no, I'm with you as well. But I feel like I said, I think that the mental fortitude that, a guy like Bozeman has with his preparation in college and his years already in the NFL, I don't think hopefully I don't think the moment will be too big. He'll be able to, realize that he's been doing this his whole life.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's just snapping a football. Doesn't matter where he's at, who's behind him, what the play is, just snap the dang ball. You've been doing it forever. So the next thing that some of our contributors to the show asked about in the poll, one of the things I mentioned was Lamar's contract extension. And this has been a topic, in the comments he made, right? So it always comes back up when somebody asks about it and he makes some comments about it. Lamar said, I'm not focused on it right now.
Right. I'm
more focused on winning a Super Bowl this season, legacy, things like that. And they even asked John that, and he said it's the great thing about Lamar is he knows that it's a done deal, but he's much more concerned about the mark that he leaves as a player and being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But and I'll tell you what, it's interesting because if you guys don't check out DK's articles, just shameless plug again. I think he kind of saw this through the weeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And said, look, it's going to be really hard for Lamar to be his agent and to be an MVP caliber quarterback in season.
Yeah.
And so, Glenn, my question to you is, what were your takes on his? What were your thoughts on his comments? And then, do you think this kind of puts a, I want to say shut the door, but puts a pause on the contract negotiations, kind of like DK was foreshadowing, and then they push it down till after the season's over?
I'm still not sold on it yet, only because I'm not so sure. Now, this is just speculation, purely we have no inside information. This is just me.
Oh, speak for yourself,
talking.
buddy.
Exactly. I feel like there's someone helping in the negotiation process for Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure who that person is. Could be his mother. Could be another mediator that he brought in, that he hired, that he trusts. I feel like there's someone talking contract other than Lamar Jackson to Eric DeCosta. And it's funny because they asked him about the Lamar Jackson's nickname for EDC, and it's every dollar counts. I think that is a hilarious nickname for Eric DeCosta, because you're right, every dollar does count to Eric DeCosta. But I believed him when he said that that's not his focus. I mean, he just is such a genuine person that I believed everything he was saying. That he watches the celebration from the Super Bowl champions and how he wants to get there. He wants to have that same type of joy and celebration, and that's his main focus right now. He's worried about ball, and that's the main thing in his mind. And I 100% agree with him. I take him at his word. I think that he is focused on that. I don't think he's as focused on the contract as we are, or the rest of the media is. I think because he knows he's going to get paid. And John said it the same way. John said he is going to get paid. There's just no doubt about it. The guy is going to be paid very, very well. He's going to make a ton of money. And even if the God forbid happens and he is injured for some reason, something happens, he gets injured and it's a season ender or something like that, he's still going to get paid a very handsome amount of money. I mean, so either way, if he bets on himself, to me, there's not a lot of negatives, because either he hits it out of the park and gets even more money than he could probably even imagine, or the worst case is he gets injured, and I still think they pay him as a franchise guy. Maybe not to the level if he goes out and wins a Super Bowl, but he's still going to be one of the top players in all of football. Certainly in the top, I think 3 to 5 at the very lowest, but I expect him to be in the top 3 and maybe even 1 or 2. So I think that his focus is on the field, and I'm glad it's on the field. But I still have a sneaky suspicion someone's negotiating on his behalf and getting a contract done, because I have heard some reports coming out that they expect that, at least the swirling rumor is that they expect a deal to be done with Lamar before training camp. Now, I don't know
so
where
this month then would be pivotal, right? Yeah,
this is a big one, and there is a little bit of a gap here. He said that it's not really a break for him, because in his opinion, the season has started. The off season is over, but there is a break from team activities for, like you mentioned, a few weeks there. So I think that there's something is going to be announced before we see him again in training camp.
If that were the case, I because John was funny also in his interview. He said, he brought up that's between Eric and his agent. And then he said, well, Lamar doesn't have an agent. So he kind of backtracked for a second. So, that you might have a point there. But it's so hard to put any stock into any of the reporting out there. And that's why this is tricky, because nobody actually knows.
Yep.
Right? All these folks out there that are putting reports out act like they have an inside track. Remember the guy, it was in Boston, said that some deal was getting done. And certainly at that point, if Lamar has an agent now, he didn't back then.
Right.
And so there was only really 2 people that had an inside track, and that was Lamar and Eric DeCosta.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Maybe Ozzy might know a couple things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But not many.
Ozzy's not doing pressers anymore.
Ozzy ain't talking. I don't care if you catch him on his jog. He ain't telling you nothing.
No, exactly. Ozzy, yeah. Remember, I love hearing about Ozzy making deals on the treadmill, man.
Yeah,
I love it. I was actually on the treadmill. I re-upped Ray Lewis's contract. No big deal.
No biggie.
Yeah, that's all. But certainly, I love to hear Lamar, like you said, focus on the legacy, focus on the right things. And look, like you said, the other thing to add to it is that waiting only in every single day the Ravens wait. I fully believe this. He makes more and more and more money. And if the Ravens, because I think they're playing with fire in that if a deal drops with Josh Allen and the Ravens see it on ESPN, it's a good thing Eric's already bald because he will have lost the rest of his hair because he lost that poker game with Lamar Jackson. Not that he's playing a poker game, but if every dollar counts, then he's trying to make every dollar count. And if Josh Allen resets the floor, Lamar Jackson is taking that and then some. You better believe that. And then if Baker gets up there too.
Come on now.
Right.
Come on now. Baker better not be up there with the top of the top. I hope he does. I hope they give him number one quarterback. I hope they pay him more than the Chiefs are paying Pat Mahomes. Let's do it. Let's load up all your cap space into the arm of Baker Mayfield and watch the quality of that roster slip and slip and slip. So, I think you're right, though. If Josh Allen goes out there and is second or even first in annual salary for a quarterback, there's no reason why Lamar shouldn't expect to make that or more. I agree with you. His value only goes up if there's other guys, signed to extensions before him. I 100% agree. I agree. I also agree with King of Puka. He's breaking the bank regardless. So really, all this contract talk that we do and everyone else does is really, I don't know how much of it is necessary because either way, he's going to be paid. He's not going anywhere. And so we're excited about it. Happy to have him here because, man, just another, like when I was watching his presser, everyone's Mr. this, Mr. like, he's just such a respectful, like nice, he makes you feel good. Like as a reporter, if I was, one of these guys, and he said, Mr. Glenn, I would feel so special that Lamar Jackson called me Mr. Glenn.
You'd be blushing, huh?
Oh, what? I'd be red. It'd be amazing. I mean, so he just makes everyone feel like comfortable. He's so down to earth.
I think one of the things that's cool, we've talked about this off air, is that you really won't find the people's athlete anymore. Like the back in the day when Jim Palmer, my mom loves to talk about the fact that Jim Palmer was blowing guys away in the World Series, and then at night he was flipping burgers at his second job. He's 19 years old, right? Just ripping guys up in the World Series. And like we won't see that anymore. But I think the way that Lamar carries himself, in that he's not tied to, he has endorsements, but he's not tied to all these huge brands. He's not, he hasn't had an agent from day one. Of course he's got an agent now, but he's got a tight-knit group. He's really loyal to them. He's the closest thing we have to like the people's chant. You know what I mean? Like he's very low key in his persona. He's not highfalutin. He doesn't put himself on a pedestal. I love that about Lamar Jackson. He's certainly, you said it before, he's the most lovable superstar we have in sports right now.
No doubt about it. If people who don't believe that, they just haven't listened to him or watched him enough. I mean, that's really because anyone who's watched him or listened to him, there's nothing to dislike. I mean, personally, I can't find a single thing.
Yeah, and if you got something wrong with the way that he carries himself, it's your fault.
Oh,
Go look in the mirror.
Yep, absolutely.
There's no other way to put it.
No doubt. You're just a hater. I mean, that's really the only thing it boils down to. So, absolutely. And I want to get into the Ravens receiving core, which is what everyone wants to talk about. But I want to touch very briefly and get your take because I think you're the perfect person to ask about this. Even though you're not a gamer, right? You're not a gamer. This isn't something I am. I love some games, okay? But I was a little shocked and surprised to see who made this year's cover of Madden. Did you see it, Jimbo?
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's not just one athlete on this cover. It's a shared cover this year. It's going to have young Tom Brady in his Bucs uniform sitting right next to Pat Mahomes in the Chiefs uniform. So they're sitting side by side looking into the camera. I mean, what are your thoughts on what are your thoughts when you see, first of all, they're both they've already been on the cover. They're already Madden cover athletes. So, and I think Tom Brady may have been on there twice. This might be number 3 for him, if I remember correctly.
I wouldn't be surprised.
What are your thoughts on Brady and Mahomes sharing the cover?
Yeah, so first of all, as a competitor, Boo on you, Patrick Mahomes, when Tom Brady sunned you in the Super Bowl, and then he destroyed you on Twitter. He wrecked your whole life on Twitter. When Patrick Mahomes has been pretty good on Twitter, and people love to put his, but literally like the coffin emoji, that's what Tom Brady did to Patrick Mahomes on Twitter. And then you turned around and sat next to him. Nah, dude, I'm not doing that. You literally destroyed me on Twitter in front of the whole world. I'm not doing it. So that's just me, right? Maybe I'm petty. I don't know. But okay. So that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, dude, look, you can't be dying for money here. Like that paycheck must have been huge, right? To be able to do that. But
maybe he just wants to show some love to the GOAT.
Yeah, you can do it in other ways. I don't know. But I don't know. I was like, meh.
Yeah.
And obviously the other side of it is like, I can't say anything about Tom Brady because he is the GOAT, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you just get tired of it. I don't know. Like, what else do you want me to say?
No, I agree. I was disappointed in Madden.
Yeah, like you thought they could have got a little more creative than that, right?
They could have got a new guy. I mean,
it's like remember like the Sprite remix?
Oh,
like they were doing all these like cheat. Like I feel like Sprite was doing these like they were sitting in a room and they were coming up with these these low level ideas. And like, you know what? Let's just try this. Like, can you put some more brain power behind that? Not take the intern's idea, but like maybe like a CMO or like a do something. Or you remember? I think it was Kanye's like fifth album. It looked like he sat in a room with GarageBand, made some beats, and then rhymed to it. I'm like. And people bought it up like crazy, but it was so low quality. Anyway, my point is that I agree with you. I think they could have got a little more creative with all the brain power they got over at Madden.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I don't want to. I'm done with these retreads. These guys that have already been on the. Let's keep it fresh. Bring a new guy in every time. It's not like it's hard to find a. I mean, they could have put Chase Young on the front. I mean, they could have put Justin Herbert. They could have put one of these young up and coming guys. They could have put J.K. Dobbins. I mean, hey, what are we doing here? I mean, why are we constantly putting up old guys? I get that. I mean, because look, a lot of times they have different levels. They'll have the regular game, then they'll have like the All-Star edition, then they'll have like the Legend edition, and each of them goes up in price as well as the content you get. If you want to put Tom on the Legend edition, like somebody else mentioned in the comments, that's fine. But we don't need both of these guys. But anyway, so disappointed that they didn't have a new athlete. There's plenty of young stars around the league they could have chosen. I'm not sure why we have to constantly see the same guys over and over, but I'm pretty sure Ray Lewis got on there twice, and I wasn't complaining about that. So this might just be.
I think he was just on. DK is saying he was just on once.
Was it once? Okay. Well, he may have been.
You're good.
There may have been some sort of a legend pack or something. It's weird with Madden. There's multiple editions each year.
Right.
There's the regular, then the superstar, then the And I think he may have made his way onto a legend.
Let me say one more thing that also flustered me, and then we'll move on from this. But, you got me all flustered, Glenn. Now you have to deal with the consequences, all right? You poked the bear.
Okay.
All right, so this is the other thing, is that I'm also tired of the reins have been automatically handed to Patrick Mahomes.
No, here we go.
I hate it. Because, look, honestly, if Lamar Jackson pulls it off this year, right? Yeah. What leg do you have to stand on to say that Patrick is definitively the next GOAT, the baby GOAT, all this crap that I like to hear, and that him and Lamar aren't at the same level, like they're not in the same conversation? I understand, and I'm not going to battle with any Chiefs fan about the fact that right now Patrick Mahomes is the most promising young quarterback, right? Like he will be, right now, sure, you could say that the reins could be handed to him, but Lamar is nipping at his heels. It's not just they act like he's lapping the field, right? And even Josh Allen and Herbert and all these other guys, but Lamar obviously is our quarterback. And if he goes out there and wins Super Bowl in his third year as a starter, having won a unanimous MVP, you know what I mean? Having gone to the playoffs all 4 years, right? And then having won a Super Bowl, if he does that, I think his resume stacks up just fine against Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to say, oh, here are the keys, Pat. Like, no, I think the jury is still out. I think it's too early to do that.
Well, it certainly is, but that's a big if. You're putting the if he wins the Super Bowl. And I agree with you. I think if he does, he'll certainly be up there in the talks, because there's no one who's accomplished more this young and this early in their career than Lamar Jackson, other than Pat Mahomes. So,
Right.
but that's a big if. You got to win the Super Bowl, and to do so, unless there's an injury, you're likely going to have to go through Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. So, if he does both of those things, then I think you're right. The conversation will change. Of course, there's always going to be the haters out there that are never going to like the way Lamar Jackson does it. But if he does that, if he especially wins MVP, I mean, what else could you really do? And I think he'll finally start getting some love and respect. But I want to talk about, let's switch topics. Let's get to this receiver core because
I got to cool my body temperature down because
I knew I'd get you fired up. And I appreciate whoever it was that I didn't give credit to who mentioned it in the chat. It kind of got lost in the chat and I missed it. But lots of excitement around the receiving core. And Lamar Jackson was even asked about it. And he said that, not to knock any of the past guys, whether it be coaches or players, but the receivers just look like they're preparing and performing different in practice this year. The level of excitement, the attention to detail. He said he feel like them coaches need to put some cleats on because they're so active in coaching these young guys up and getting these guys ready to play. I mean, I hear that Lamar Jackson had his best passing day in the last practices at minicamp before they kind of, I think they used their last day. Yeah, the last final day of Ravens minicamp was focused on meetings and condition tests, but not really practice. So yeah, there we go. So it looks like, appreciate it, DK. It looks like Lamar Jackson had his best passing day. Sammy Watkins is really shining. Got behind Marlon for a deep ball. But also Marlon got his get back and picked off one of Lamar's bad passes, but also Ben Victor, another guy who we really don't talk a ton about. We do mention him, but we don't talk a ton about him. Going up, making tough catches over the DBs. What are you starting to get like, is this the most heated battle right now in camp, that wide receivers position?
Yeah, it has to be, right? I'm excited about it and I'm looking forward to what the eventual lineup will be. It's definitely heated, and like I'm so encouraged by all the things I'm hearing. Hearing Lamar talk about Rashad, hearing the fact that Sammy is looking healthy, and one thing I think is really important about that is that Sammy in his first presser with the Ravens talked about properly tuning himself up and pacing himself as a vet, right? Mm-hmm. Shout out to Smodius the Notice. We haven't seen a
it's
chat.
It's been a little while. Yeah,
man. Where you been?
Appreciate you coming back out.
Hopefully you haven't been sick off McChickens, man. Yeah. McBangers. You got to go all the way with it. But we appreciate the love. But it's cool to see that Sammy is now, and John said that in his presser, is it seems to know when to hammer, right? And know when it's a 60% day, right? Like it's really important to do in athletics in general, whatever the sport is. As an athlete, you gotta sometimes set your ego at the door and say, today isn't a hammer day. I'm not going to go out and compete. I need to do these things for my body. I need to do these things for my mind, but I'm not competing with everyone around me. It's difficult, right? Like it's hard to turn that off, but I think that's really important for Sammy. And today, this mini camp was one of those times where he was like, all right, I'm gonna turn it on. You know what I mean? Type situation. And it sounds like he did, because we know he's always had all the physical tools.
No doubt.
Right. So I'm excited about all of it. And who knows, man, Benjamin Victor, no one's talking about him. He might get that 6th spot. We just don't know. He's got size.
Yeah, he's got that size that the Ravens fans have been wanting and asking for. I can't wait to see how the Ravens front office ultimately maneuvers this group of talent. Yeah. It's so funny that we're talking about too much talent to make the roster at the wide receiver spot. I mean, what is going on here, Jimbo? Am I in the Twilight Zone?
You're living. This is like upside down land in what's it called? In Stranger Things.
Exactly. How have we gotten to this point where we have too much talent at wide receiver and we're still talking Baltimore Ravens football? That is just absolutely crazy. But I think it's really exciting. I mean, I listened to Lamar talk about what Bateman has done and how he looks, and obviously, Lamar's connection with Marquise, and he talked about for a second he mentioned that Watkins might be as fast, and then he said, nah, Keese is faster. But he said, but Sammy Watkins is a bigger frame. So I think you muted yourself, Jimbo.
What a noob! My God.
I remember my first day.
gosh. No, but just to be in that conversation with Marquise in and of itself, saying something about Sammy, right?
What's that?
Just to be in that conversation.
Yeah, because we know if I was in a foot race with Marquise, I mean, it wouldn't be close. I mean, so yeah,
no, I
absolutely.
think he'd beat us both running backwards. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, but at least you'd put up a fight. I mean, me.
I'd put up a fight if he was running backwards. That's the crazy thing.
But yeah, I mean, so it's just going to be interesting to see how the Ravens ultimately try and hide guys. You know, someone's going to that IR. Someone's getting that phantom rolled ankle. You know, I mean, I remember you know, they used to say, who's taking a walk to the parking lot and going to step in the phantom hole in the parking lot and roll their ankle, because someone's getting hidden. The wide receiver, Asmodeus, again, appreciate the love. He says the wide receiver group is kind of like cornerbacks. It's best to have more in case of injury. The depth will make the position will help
to make the position.
Oh, I got you. To make the position a weakness,
right? Or the depth will help not make the position a weakness.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Makes sense. Absolutely. Because you don't want to have you don't want to have a top heavy group anywhere. You don't want to have a group that's only good the 1, 2, or 3 spot and then have a bunch of scrubs behind them. So it is exciting to hear that it looks like there's going to be some depth here. I mean, when we had Chris Moore as our 5th receiver, I mean, that's a problem. I mean,
there's no other way around it.
It's a problem. I mean, that's not something that gets me excited. So, it's a really good problem to have, the fact that the Ravens have so many talented receivers. But
do you remember when people thought that Chris Moore was going to be the next Torrey Smith?
Oh, my goodness. I'm still salty about Torrey. That's one of the guys that got away. I mean, I understand they paid him a lot of money, but that's one guy that certainly got away. And I think Flacco certainly missed him. But yeah, I just want to know who makes this and how do they hide them? Because if you're talking about joint practices and preseason, you can't hide everyone. You can't make everyone disappear and hope to sneak them through to the practice squad. You're going to have to see what they got in the game. You're going to have to see what they got when the lights are on and they're going up against live competition. So we're going to see some opportunities for guys to make plays. And I hope that it causes some really tough decisions to be made, because what if Ben Victor goes out there and he's jumping over DBs, pulling in ball, and forces his way on the team? I mean, can you just imagine if both Prochet and Boykin were both not on the final roster week 1? I mean, it's a very real possibility with Deion Kane and Ben Victor. If they continue to show out, which is what we've been hearing reports out of camp, I mean, who knows who could get cut? It could be, we could see some shockers, happen. And we could also see an extension in that position. We could see him keep 7 and then go thin elsewhere. I just really want to see, how it ultimately shakes out, who goes to the IR, who ends up getting cut, and who gets through to the practice squad.
Yeah, just like Adam Graff said, sounds like a good problem. Absolutely. And shout out Adam for supporting the show. Certainly sounds like a good problem to have. And like you said, Glenn, it is a parallel universe, right? Like we are living in a parallel universe with the Ravens. And Marlon, I think you mentioned this, Marlon talked about, it helps the DBs in being deep in that. It was funny because he was trying to like not knock other players while also knocking them. In that he was saying before it was like, okay, it's like 1, 2, 3. But then after that, it's like, you know what I mean? But now, the 7th wide receiver, and we got to work really hard because these guys are out there hustling, they're playing, and they're making plays. But
like Don C said, I haven't been hearing a lot about Boykin. Now, I did hear Lamar bring him up, but he almost brought him up as if he was making a point to bring him up because he's always forgotten him in the past.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard, I saw a tweet, and I forgot what reporter was on site. And it's hard to say this because no pads are on, but he said that Boykin is – he said, I don't know how Boykin gets cut from this team. He is by far the best blocking receiver that we have.
Jimbo, if I hear more about his blocking, I'm going to lose my cool. I mean, I've heard enough about this man as a blocker. My goodness, you could hire any receiver. Michael Campanera, we could call him up right now and say, look, we don't need you to catch the ball. We want you to be a decoy and block your ass off. What do you think he would do? I mean, he would fold himself in half to block these guys. I mean, it's just anyway. But I did see an interesting question in the comments when referring to, when we hear all these reports come out about Watkins burning this guy deep, Bateman doing this, Ben Victor jumping over guys. Anytime, does it get you concerned at all about the secondary when you hear Marlon Humphrey getting one over the top, when you hear, this guy getting beat deep?
Right.
Any concern level on our secondary?
No, this is why, because John talked about some players showing out more when the pads are on. Mm-hmm. Wait till the pads are on and Marlon gets all up in you, right? Every day, all day, he's in your face. 9 times out of 10, he's stronger than the receiver. Not every time, but 9 times out of 10, he's certainly stronger. He's usually faster, if not just as fast. So Marlon's game, once the physicality increases, his game improves. So Marlon specifically. And then Marcus, I think, a lot of his stuff, a lot of his value is in it's just like there are one-on-one basketball players and there are 5v5 basketball players, right? Where I think Marcus Peters' ability to read the quarterback, the wide receiver, and read 2, 3, 4 things that are going on at once and then make the proper play on the ball or what make him the most valuable. And that's not always going to come out in a 1v1 type scenario.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or even a 7v. It's just not the same. So I certainly think for Marlon, it's about the pads. And then for Marcus, it's about being out there and tricking the quarterback and things and making the right read. So I'm not concerned about it. I can't wait to hear back from these guys when Marlon's got his paws on him for a little bit. Right?
Yeah. To me, no worries whatsoever. I mean, this is exciting. We're talking about 2 all-pro corners.
Yeah.
You think they're worried about a mini camp or an OTA? Absolutely not. I'm excited to hear that they're getting beat because, I mean, I wouldn't even be shocked to know if we gave some truth serum to these guys if they didn't kind of pull back a little bit and let them get some confidence, because who needs the confidence in that battle? I don't think Marlon needs any confidence boost from getting a tip ball off of Ben Victor. No, it doesn't matter to him. It doesn't move the needle for him. But if Ben Victor can go up and snatch a ball away from Marcus Peters, what does that do for his confidence level? I mean, so again, I have no concern at all. And in fact, I want to hear more of this. I want to hear a ton of receivers going up and dominating our secondary, because if they can do that to this talented group, I mean, they got to be real confident going into any matchup that they're going up against a guy who's inferior to the guy they just got done mossing in practice all summer long. So I want to hear more and more about this receiving core, giving it to this talented cornerback room, and hope that it translates and carries over to the regular season. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I'm gonna peel back the onion really quickly here and give you a good anecdote to prove your point. Not that you guys are gonna care that much. It's okay. I mean, whatever. So I jumped into lacrosse relatively late in the game, right? In Maryland standards. And the team I joined happened to have a really good 2 really good defenders. And I had already at that point, as you know, Glenn, I mean, I grew up playing basketball and there's a lot of similarities between the 2 games. So I had like body movements and concepts down, but I need to learn how to play the game. I need to learn quick. So I said, all right, I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me, but I want to be matched up against you every single day, because I know if I can succeed against you guys, everything else is going to be easier. Right. So that's a great point that you bring up. I mean, it worked well for me to help me, get up to speed and find some success. And much more importantly than my stupid story is that we want these guys to feel confident, to feel like they can beat the best. Like Terrence Hall says that, iron is sharpening iron. So certainly, that might be a good point. Maybe John's in there like, look, or maybe they're just talking amongst themselves like, hey, let's gas these guys up a little bit.
Yeah.
And hopefully it works out. Another thing I want to mention too is Adam Graff also brings up Tavon. So let's switch over to the other side. John, talked about Tavon, but he kind of talked about replacing Tavon in a roundabout way. Like he kind of touched on it a little bit because he said, we'll have to wait and see. And that position and that role is kind of open, because he talked about not like people, but roles being open in some scenarios. Where are you with the Tavon? Are you just done with it? You have no belief that he can stay healthy? Where are you with Tavon Young? Because I'm hopeful. I feel like, I don't know, for some reason, injuries don't scare me as much as they probably should. But I feel like he's going to be able to come back and do something. Where are you with Tavon?
I'm hopeful. but I'm not expecting a thing. I mean, I'm super hopeful because he's so good. He's so talented. I love the passion he plays with. I love the toughness, at his size that he sticks his nose in there and he'll take down the ball carrier. I'm excited about him, but I just don't have any hope, Jimbo, at this point that he can make it through a full 17 game season. I have just no hope for it. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but I mean, the level of surprise would be, put it this way, I'd be less surprised if the Ravens won the Super Bowl than if Tavon Young made it through an entire season. So, I mean, I would be stunned. I mean, stunned. So here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for if he does get hurt or when he gets hurt, unfortunately, I hope it's only a couple weeks. I just don't want to see another season-ending injury. It seems like every time he gets hurt, it's not a 1 or 2 week or even 4 or 5 week. It's a year. I mean, we're talking the rest of the season. So I think that he's the type of player where you don't count on what he brings, and he's just the cherry on top. Like if he stays healthy for however many weeks, look at that as a bonus and not something you expect going into it. I mean, I don't even know if it's Monday and you're not playing until Sunday. I don't even know if you can expect him there on Sunday. I mean, because he's still going to have to go through a whole week of practice, and you just never know when that injury bug's going to bite again. So I'm not counting on Tavon for anything. I'm only hoping and looking at him as the cherry on top of this defense.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Sorry, King. I don't want it to happen, but it's inevitable. I mean, it's just inevitable with him. And honestly, there's a reason there's not a ton of guys at his size playing on defense, because you can't tell me that his lack of size hasn't played a part in his injury history.
Yeah, certainly. So, well, it's about that time. So we're going to bring in DK for some words of wisdom here. I think he's got an interesting conversation to bring up, something that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about. So DK, what do you got for us, my man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's up?
So I've been actually thinking a lot about the different roster battles that are going on, this during the off season here. One thing that you might find in an article that comes up this week
teaser
there, little teaser, is the battle that's going on at tight end. So, we've got two solid tight ends in Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle. And by the way, Nick Boyle's coming off we haven't really been talking about that. I'm not sure how it's going with him, but off a pretty major knee injury. And so how well he performs and what we can expect out of him is still, to me, maybe a question mark. And so the depth behind those two guys, I think, is a bigger deal than maybe we're making it out to be. Because of Greg Roman. So, Greg Roman, I mean, based off the way that we run our offense, I mean, running the ball is huge. So I don't want to give away too much of the article, but I mean, the point is, we use tight ends more than maybe other teams. And so that third tight end is, to me, it's a starting position. So, and if that's we don't even know who's potentially going to fill it. I think that's a bigger question mark than maybe other positions where, we can kind of figure out what's going to pass rusher, the way how creative Wink is with the defense. We'll be able to figure it out, even if, worst comes to worst, we don't add anyone. I mean, that would be pretty bad, but I think you could still figure it out with the tight end, with the way that we like to run the ball. I think it's a bigger issue than we're talking about.
Interesting. Yeah. Definitely an intriguing conversation. And I'm looking forward to the article as well.
Also interesting to see what style of tight end they add there. Do they add a bruiser, a physical tight end, a blocker? Do they add an athletic guy who can tear up the seam and get open in those soft zone coverages and stuff? So, I think.
Yeah, what do they value the most, right? Because they're not going to get a perfect prospect at that point.
They're not going to get a guy who's good at both. So I think you're right in the sense that this will be a good peek into the mind of the leaders of the team and what they value over, what they don't.
You remember when Tomlinson dropped that touchdown in the end zone last year? And man, it was such a pretty play. And you knew that Mark Andrews makes that catch in his sleep. Yeah. Right. But like you said, I mean, that's where you're at in the depth chart. but you need a pivotal piece right there. So it's a great point, DK. I'm interested to take a read. I always love getting the notification when the article's up. So I'm excited to check it out. And if you guys want access to them, I've said it before, it's $1 a month. Go check out our Patreon, find us there. And DK is putting out some.
He's a much better writer than should be found on 410 Sports Talk.
Yes,
so
certainly. We're lucky to have him. So
yeah, no doubt about
Happy to do it for sure.
And Joshua Hunter says, I wish we could rest Tavon a few games in the middle of the season, just bring him back for the playoffs. I understand his point. Yeah, I understand his point. Yeah, exactly. Bring some
ask
load
Kawhi
management
Leonard how that's going.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor Kawhi,
well, don't
man.
ask LeBron because my goodness, he's sounding off. But I think it's that's something more for like the fans to hope for. I don't ever foresee a guy getting paid that much sat unless there is an injury. But I understand your sentiment. I understand, man, it'd be nice to know that we're at our healthiest and we're at our best when the time is most necessary, and that's the playoffs. So I understand, Josh, and I wish and hope that there's somehow he can be healthy. But I think what's more realistic is that he comes in and maybe gets a shorter injury and is then back for the playoff. Like I could see that him play for the first 5 weeks, miss the next 8 to 10, and then they kind of hide him and just let him practice his way, and then and keep him healthy until they until they need him in the playoffs. But yeah, I understand, and I've often thought that as well, but I don't think that's really realistic from a team perspective. Yeah,
for sure. No, I agree with you. Where I feel like a running back, it's a little easier to pace him throughout the season.
Yeah.
Which is the one thing I hate about the University of Utah coaching staff. They don't pace their running backs. They beat the crap out of them. They get to the pros and then they're tread on the tires. Mm-hmm. But so you can do that, I feel like, at the running back position. But I think at this position, it's like you said, the money's too much. And he's already not in on every play.
Yeah. And they're not going to pay a guy that much money to be healthy and sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, certainly. So we had an absolute blast tonight. I had a good time. Make sure, like Glenn said at the beginning, we had an awesome show at Landry Burdine. So go check it out. Talking about our Darius Washington, what type of player we're getting, and some reasonable, like really well-founded and not emotional takes that you're going to be really excited about in his game. So go check it out. Make sure to find us wherever you find us. Whether that's podcast, whether that's Newsbreak, whether that's YouTube, follow us on social media. But we had a blast. We'll be back soon. We're going to keep doing our PFF videos as they keep putting out fuel to the fire for the Ravens flock. So we'll keep putting it out. But we'll see you guys soon.
See you.